Let the dead bury the dead. Okay, so this is really important, and it is a technique. As I've shared before in my other videos, when you're deconstructing the Hebrew, or the Greek for that matter, most of what you're going to run into is either a deeper understanding of who you are as God or a practical technique. Okay, so most people have heard of the phrase, let the dead bury the dead, right? Now, what are you burying and what is dead? So the death refers to the old reactions, the old self, the old identity, the old collection of things that reinforced your old state, right? And again, a lot of these terms are, I think, sometimes used but not fully understood. So again, remember, a state is an identity, but an identity itself is also a collection of beliefs and emotions and memories that you keep reinforcing in loop. Okay? So when you're letting the dead bury the dead, you're letting the beliefs, the emotions, the memories die. That's pretty violent, but the whole idea is that you are only allowing that to be buried. Now, interestingly enough, the Hebrew word for bury means en masse, right? Meaning a group, okay? So it's very, very interesting because that means that there is a collection of beliefs. There's a collection of emotions. There's a collection and even habits that you may even do in this world in 3D that will keep reinforcing and re-engaging the old state, okay? So let the dead bury the dead. In one sense, that's also saying just ignore it. But at the same time, what you do and how you ignore it is by letting those old beliefs bury the other old beliefs. Now, let's talk about this in the form of a metaphor, okay? So, Jonah and the whale, very popular, very famous biblical story, okay? And there's loads of actual historical interesting facts that I might go into in another YouTube. But for the sake of this story, only see it as a psychological metaphor, okay? So in the ancient Hebrew symbology, or like symbolic meaning, the whale represented patterns or patterns of thinking, patterns of seeing, patterns of perception, okay? And so when we meet Jonah, and by the way, there's more symbols here that I'm not going to get into in this particular one, but for the sake of the story and the point of understanding letting the dead bury the dead, you have to understand there's a point where Jonah jumps ship, as we know, if you know the story, right? And he gets swallowed by this whale. He gets swallowed by a pattern. That means he's immersed, he's consumed, doesn't know the difference, right? Have you ever been in a part of your life where you're so entrenched in tunnel vision, right? Where you can't see anything beyond what you're looking at, okay? That's ultimately what's being said in this story. He is so consumed by the pattern, okay? But what? Well, at one point, he actually says, I am in Sheol, okay? Now, that is the abode of the dead, according to the Hebrew. That's the place where the dead go. No, it's not hell. It's more like a waiting room, okay? It'd be like seeing people just walking around hanging out, right? Like in Beetlejuice, right? It's death's waiting room, okay? But what is dying? Remember, this isn't about physical death. It's about mental death, meaning you have beliefs, you have emotions, you have memories that are keep showing up and reinforcing themselves, right? And so what are you dying to? It's the place where these things go to die. And he even says, basically, like, I'm at death's door. Like, I'm on the cusp of something new, okay? Because I'm giving this up. And so what are you doing? Letting the dead bury the dead is being on the cusp of the new person, okay? Because if you don't let the dead bury the dead, and you keep rehearsing, why did this happen? How is this happening to me? Why? And what did I do to deserve it, right? That's what's going on when we don't let the dead bury the dead. We simply turn to victim thinking, okay? But when we let go, when we let the dead bury the dead, we get rid of victim thinking. We take responsibility. This is your salvation. At least this is step one towards your salvation, meaning getting the desire that you want, right? And so what that means is that you have to go through and do, Neville says this actually takes work, right? Not effort, but work. Okay. And so I want to encourage you to recognize and realize that to bury the dead means to let go, yes, but it's also to let go of the patterns, of the beliefs, of the emotions, of the memories that keep reinforcing and limiting you, that you are accepting as part of you now. Okay? So you have to see this as a very pragmatic, very practical step by step. But again, let's go. And I'm going to end with this. When it says, let the dead bury the dead, what are you burying the dead with? Right? Because that idea of burying is where your technique is found. Okay? Because even with the idea that we talked about before, about might and power and understanding might and power. Okay. Well, the Hebrew idea of might or power is about overcoming something, but also being emphatic about something. So you are burying the dead, the old beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the things that you don't want to experience anymore, with the emphasis, because now you're actually using power and might, which again, back to why I just said, it means to emphasize. What are you emphasizing? What are you burying? You are burying the old self by hyper and overemphasizing the feelings of the wish fulfilled. That's ultimately what's happening here. To let the dead bury the dead is to quite literally bury the dead, right? To overcome it, right? And so you're using power, but the power's mental. And the mental power is your ability to emphasize the emotions, the beliefs, and the new memories, hence why revision is important for Neville, right? To consume the other and old death-related limiting beliefs that you've accepted and normalized, right? So again, remember, this is actually a technique. Burying the dead is you hyper emphasizing and saying, I am this person. I am this person, right? And not just affirming, believing it, accepting it, right? Really soaking it in, drenching it, right? As Neville says, to the nth degree, okay? So I would encourage you to use this technique and share below if you have before. If you haven't, let me know. I challenge you to use this for at least 21 days, okay? Use the burying method for 21 days, which is basically using the handful of new emotions, of the new feelings, until you feel like you don't need to do that anymore, right? And so that's how you get rid of doubts as well. You bury them with the emotions and feelings and the mental states and the mental memories that you're creating every single time. You create a new reference, right? And we're going to talk about memory in the future. We're going to talk about the neuroscience of memory as well. We're going to explore that because Neville actually has a great lecture on memory and also revising the memory. So we're going to do some deep dives into this, but I wanted to get on here, give you yet another technique, and sorry for the shakiness, but much love to you all. And I hope this was helpful, and be safe in the world. Talk to you soon.